Great Writers Media.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're diving into the transformative world of leadership with Carol Ann Langford. She's written a powerful book. It is called The Speed of Passion. Carol Ann revolutionizes corporate leadership with innovative practices that enhance stakeholder engagement and drive innovation. Join us right now as we explore how relationship-based leadership can redefine your approach to business and unleash the highest human potential. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Great Writers Media for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her wonderful and important book. The links are below this interview. Carol Ann, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. It's so great to be here. I'm privileged and delighted. And I'd like to suggest that we create an intention, right? Intention setting is one of the foundations of my work. And I'd like to just create an intention today, Logan, that everybody who sees this or listens to it is uplifted, edified, inspired, and comes away with some strategies and ways of improving their own leadership and what they're creating in the world.
Absolutely.
What do you think? Does that sound
Absolutely.
good?
And business is a very creative pursuit. We think of the arts as creativity, but people who are growing and building businesses and managing teams of people, there's a lot of creativity that goes into that as well, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. And I think sometimes in the larger corporations, people can feel, I think it's an illusion, but they can feel as though they don't have as much creativity because especially when there's hierarchy and it's big and people can think like, oh, I'm just a small individual here. It doesn't really matter what my contribution is. And I think that's an illusion. Because even in the big organizations, there's room to contribute even on your team.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you shouldn't feel like a cog in the wheel. You should feel like you're making important contributions. And I think that's part of being a good leader, when you make everybody feel like their voice is heard, that their input counts and matters, right?
It's huge. That's a crucial element in leadership, is bringing visibility to the teams that you're managing, really letting people know that they're not just some anonymous cog in the wheel. No, that there's an individual here. And by acknowledging each of those people, knowing who they are, knowing their gifts, knowing their capacities, their capabilities. And of course, it's helpful when we put the right people in the right jobs, that then we're creating better conditions where the employees, I like to call us associates, the associates can flourish in their creativity and their contribution. And in that way, the organization also benefits.
Absolutely. It's a win-win. If you're giving the right leadership, if you're empowering your workers, your associates, as you call them, then you're going to be building a better organization, a better company, a better service, a better product. Why did you call the book The Speed of Passion?
First of all, I really like the value for bringing our passion into the work that we do. In fact, there's a wonderful, I'm going to share a little quotation here from a man named Frederick Buechner. It's one of my favorite quotes when I'm working with executives, when I'm coaching them. It says, your great success or meaning occurs when your great passion meets the world's great need. So I like it when organizations invite their associates to find out who they are as contributors in the organization, or when they're hired to know what is their passion and how is their passion aligned with what that company is doing, and how is their passion, their skill, their talent aligned with what the company needs to produce its outcome, whatever it's doing in the world to make a positive difference.
Absolutely. Your book, of course, focuses on relationship-based leadership. Explain to the folks at home what relationship-based leadership is.
Yes. Well, I think relationship-based leadership invites us into collaboration, right?
Mhm.
We bring a relationship context to our leadership. So instead of that hierarchical, direct tell, this is the idea, do what I tell you because I said so.
Mhm.
If we're engaged in a relationship where leadership is inviting associates to contribute their ideas, their creativity, their initiative, their own uniqueness to
Mhm.
the solutions that are being made, well, then we're fostering an environment where there's more ownership.
Mhm.
You see, so I mean, when people feel like they don't have the invitation or the freedom to contribute their ideas, then that's I think when we limit the possibilities. So by getting to know our associates, understanding them, appreciating them, being deliberate in the way that we acknowledge who they are, and then putting them in the right position and giving them some freedom to be co-creators on their
Mhm.
teams, then I think you're going to engage them in a deeper way. And when people are owning this, when they feel an experience of owning the company mission, that's when I think we get a better product out of it. We get a
Yeah.
better outcome because they're having more fun. Simon Sinek has a great video on the power of why and knowing our true north purpose in why
Mhm.
we do what we do. But the point that he makes is when people are authentically engaged through their passion, through their creativity, then they're going to be willing to give all they have to give. You know,
Yeah.
that's when the blood, sweat, and tears is is involved in what they give. It's not just a transactional obligation. It goes from transactional obligation, it transforms into an act of passion. And with that passion, we've got more room for innovation.
Exactly. And you're changing the culture or improving the culture of the workplace. I mean,
Yeah.
we've all worked in places where it's a very negative culture. It's us and them, and they don't know anything, and we're the smart ones, but they don't care what we have to say. And, those businesses tend to flounder.
Yes.
Ones where people are appreciated, where their input is taken and understood and many times incorporated into practice.
Mhm.
You're building a better structure, you're building a better corporate culture, don't you think?
Yes, no question, no question. And I have a really good example. I have a lot of examples of this actually, but
Mhm.
I'll pick one from my own life. And this is I and my brother and our business partner at the time. We were very young. I was 21, my brother was 17. The business partner happened to be the guy I was dating at the time and who I ended up marrying. But the
Mhm.
three of us got this idea to do a business together. And my brother happened to be working in the retail automobile tire sector. And
Mhm.
we said, we could probably do this. So we set about to doing this and we started as a service operation and we grew. Then we wanted to expand. We went out to California because the market was more open there and we started over. And here's the value system that we brought. We said, number one, the people who work with us, we don't call them employees, we call them associates.
Mhm.
We invited our associates to be owners of the retail store that they worked in.
Mhm.
And this was the value system that we mentored in them. And they were all very, very open. They loved this idea. It's that whoever walks in the door of your business, imagine them to be a member of your family whom you love
Mhm.
and whom you want to take good care of. So we fostered that values-based leadership with servant leadership ideas around we're here to help. We're here to deliver something that can be helpful to the people who are coming to our business.
Yeah.
In addition, we paid the highest wages in the industry. We gave the greatest benefits. We acknowledged people every year with a big party and gave prizes and bonuses. We paid the highest wages in the industry, best benefits. And by golly, that motivated people to create an incredible corporation. And by the time the business was sold in the year 2000, there were 23 thriving locations in the San Francisco, San Jose Bay Area. And
Amazing.
I helped launch it. My brother was the tech guy. Our partner had the business dealings. I brought the brand. And
Mm.
who do we want to be? And what are our values? So that's an example of how this values-based leadership approach can make a big difference.
And when you say the associates were owners, were they literally owners or figuratively owners? Were they given like pride of ownership? Tell us about that aspect of it.
Yes, the ownership came through the ways that they were compensated.
Mhm.
And that had to do with there was profit
Mhm.
sharing all along the way. And I believe when the company was sold, that the people who had been there the longest received some percentage of what that was. Now, another model, a current model that does that, is the KKR private equity company. Pete Stavros, who's been the CEO there, has been a wonderful innovator of this model, which when they acquire a company, and if that company gets sold, whatever are the profits, the people who have worked at that company get a percentage of that. They get a share. So you see that in that way, the associates are visible. We're recognized. They're appreciated for the really important contribution that they're making. But I
Exactly.
but I also think that when we create these win-win contexts, it's more fun. Isn't it more fun to work in an environment like that? What would you say, Logan?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, I've worked for TV stations and networks that were crummy, or a director that has a hostile set. And people are like this. They're afraid. They're just covering their butts all the time
Yes,
and trying to hang on to their job and looking elsewhere.
yes,
And when somebody's empowering, what do you think? What would you do? You know, I've had directors turn to me, Logan, in a situation like this, what would you do as a newsman? And I can tell them right away. You know, and I have other news directors where I'm doing other directors of films and I'm doing something and they'll say, no, 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 that's not how a newsman would do it. I'm like, okay, I've been a newsman for a long time, but you tell me how it's done. But so you're right. It's all the approach. It's very, very important. Let's talk about your book. What will folks find between the covers? Who is it geared for and how is it structured?
yes. Well, I'll share that the book was inspired by the work that I've been doing for over 20 years in the organizational development space in corporate America.
Mhm.
And I've worked in the Fortune 10. I've also worked with startups. I've also worked in the nonprofit sector. So I've had this privilege of being on the inside of these organizations. And as a coach, I'm there to help each individual and
Mhm.
each team and each organization fulfill its potential, fulfill its highest potential. That's a sacred value for me. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
I'm I'm really interested in nourishing human consciousness so that we can step into the best kinds of contributions that we can make through the companies that we work for, through the art projects that we do, regardless of what we're doing. I would love to see the human species and everybody that I work with step into their full potential. So
Mhm.
I've had the privilege of working with fantastic individuals and teams. And so I see the benefit of this values-based leadership approach. Now, so I'm inspired. I'm completely inspired. And I dedicated the book to my brother, my beloved brother, who has a huge heart for business and really was a big part of the heart and soul of the companies that he created. And I have to say, you witness how people flourish in those environments when there's values-based leadership. So within the book, the thing that a lot of people say they really like about it, I have stories. I tell a lot of stories that
Mhm.
demonstrate the principles. Now, the principles that are included are number one, current understanding of mindfulness practice, intention setting, the use of emotional intelligence in our relationship building and communication, the use of what we call conversational intelligence, empathy, right? How we bring all of that into our communication. Additionally, I have a whole section on executive presence and communication skills. Because you can have a great idea, but what happens if you can't communicate it very
Yeah.
well? Have you seen that, Logan? Have you been in
Absolutely.
organizations?
There's a lot of people who are
Yeah.
inarticulate. They can't express it. They've got the idea in their head, but they don't know how to let the workforces know about it.
Yes, yes, yes. I had a good friend who worked I don't know if it still exists. It was the Plug and Play building in Silicon Valley. And
Mhm.
this was like an incubator for new businesses. And people got to apply, and I think you got a reduced rent if you worked out of there. But I'm pretty sure it was every month there was an event when venture capitalists came to the building, and they came to hear the presentations of the people who were there incubating new technology, new ideas.
Mhm.
And my friend who worked there witnessed a number of these presentations. And he just said to me, he said, Carol, you should be coaching there because
Mhm.
he said, I know there are fantastic people who are coming up with brilliant ideas, but in the meetings with the venture capitalists, they get lost because,
Mhm.
they're, for whatever reason, they get nervous or they haven't prepared well enough or they haven't found a way to really relate or translate their idea to their audience. So all these great ideas get lost and sadly, the money is left on the table
Yeah.
simply because they didn't have the communication skills.
Mhm.
So within the communication skills, Logan, I emphasize a few elements. Number one, your content.
Mhm.
And your content needs to be tailored to that audience. You've got to know who you're talking to, and we need to speak their language. You've got to
Right.
translate it for them. Then we go into the delivery skills, the body language. I know people hate that, but I like to think of the body language not so much like an external uh,
Right.
article of clothing that you put on. No, you use eye contact
Mhm.
because we want to have an authentic connection. If you're
Mhm.
really looking at people, you can tell if they're
Right.
if they're understanding you. Would you agree with that? Can you
Yeah,
tell?
it
It's
should
not just
be a good monologue should actually be a conversation. The partner is silent, but you're reading the faces in the room, and
exactly.
that's the only way to connect.
That's right. And you can tell if you're really looking, if you're really engaged, you can tell if they're with you or not.
Yeah.
So, and the same thing, what about the voice? Is it helpful to have a voice that's audible? Is
Mhm.
it helpful if people can hear what you're saying?
Yeah.
Is it helpful if they can understand? And what about the facial expression, right? I mean, some people say, "Oh, I'm supposed to smile." And you get this fake,
Yeah.
this facade on their face. And I say, no, 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 there's a deeper invitation here. You bring an openness to
Mm.
bring goodwill. Let's have goodwill. Let's bring respect. Let's bring appreciation. What if we were friendly, right? I
Yeah.
mean, these people in the room might be nervous. Who knows? But if we're the presenter, we're the host. So
Mhm.
as the host, let's make them comfortable. And if we're
Yeah.
comfortable, let's have an open, relaxed, agreeable facial expression, right? It doesn't
Exactly.
have to be, it's not fake, right? And I guess that's where I don't like the way delivery skills, the body language is taught sometimes, because I see it as more like a fake uh, putting on some behavior, but there's a deeper invitation to connect
Yeah.
and do so with grace. How does
Exactly.
that sound?
And also your spoken words can't be in conflict with what's on your face, with how you're dressed, the way you're
Bingo.
presenting yourself. That's most important for
Yes,
sure. Yeah,
yes. Yeah, we have a name for that. That's called an inconsistent message.
true.
It's like,
Exactly.
hello, so nice to be with you today. Happy to we have a revolutionary idea that's going to change the world and make everything great. It's like somehow
Exactly.
I'm not getting that you're really in this. So
Exactly. If you're
yeah,
so
so
enthused about it, how come you're so monotone?
yes,
Exactly.
right,
That's
right,
your
right.
name. That's your next book. If you're so enthused about it, how come you're so monotone?
Yeah, well,
Let's
I have
say,
a lot of stories. Every chapter's got a story.
well, I think that's
And
great. The stories are illustrative, because, it's like like telling a story in a news story. We can tell you that 1 out of 17 kids in America are hungry, but we can show you the story of one family one night gathering at the table with no food, and that's going
right,
to be much more impactful. So
yes,
that's where storytelling is really, really important across the board, whether it's, communications or business or finance or whatever it might be.
yeah, I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
And some of the stories are my own. In the chapter on emotional intelligence, I tell a story of a rather colorful conversation that I had with a police officer. I was very young, this was many years ago,
Hmm.
but I was driving home. I had been in a play. I was an actor at the time, and I
Hmm.
was driving home. It was late at night. Now I never drank and drove, so I was completely fine. But I was enjoying the music, and
Right.
I ended up turning my car around. I was in a sports car. I happened to I happened to. It was the middle of the night. There was no traffic, but I did a
Did a
U-turn.
180 or
Yeah,
360. Yeah.
well, no, it wasn't that. I just turned to go the other direction. It was
Oh,
very
okay.
simple. I wasn't doing anything crazy. No, I just made a left turn and went the other way.
Right.
And the police officer, this police officer pulled me over. Again, there was no traffic. It was just
Right.
me by myself enjoying the music in my car. But I got to tell you, I made an assumption. And in this practice called conversational intelligence, talks about watch out for the ladders of assumption. So I thought, what's he doing?
Mm.
What's this guy pulling me over for? And he came over and he asked me for my license and registration. And I looked at him and I said, what for?
Mm.
he said, he said, and he was surprised that I asked him. And he said, well, because I'd like to make sure that you're the operator of this vehicle. But anyway, my conversation got very colorful with him.
Mm.
And I was very respectful, very, very respectful. But I challenged him and I said, I don't
Mm.
know why you're pulling me over here. I don't think
Right.
I've done anything wrong. And, it progressed into, officer, what is the spirit of the law here? What is the spirit of the law? And do you think about why you do your job? And do you really feel that it was warranted that you pulled me over? So I got in this, and he got insulted and reactive, and he said, I wasn't going to give you a ticket, but I'm giving you a ticket now. And I said, oh yeah, that's right. Use your power. Fine, fine, fine. You know, so you know, it escalated in this
Mm.
way, and I ended up saying, just give me the ticket. I don't care. Well, then he goes back to his car, but I get in my car. I'm in this little sports car, and I like rum rum, and I all this gravel comes up. I spew gravel in his grill, and I go out on the road, but I go real slow. Well, don't you know? He pulled me over again. I see the lights, and it's like, God, I can't believe it.
Wow.
Comes over, and I look at him, and I go, so now what? What? You gonna tell me I can't lay a little rubber on the side of the road if I feel like it? And he goes, no. And wait for it. Get this. He goes, no. I pulled you over because I just had to tell you that you hurt my feelings.
Wow.
And that's what I did. I was stunned. I went, what? He goes, yeah, you hurt my feelings. He said, it's 2:30 in the morning. You're a single woman. You're driving this car. You did you turned in the road. You crossed a double yellow line, which you weren't supposed to. They said that's beside the point. But he goes, I thought you might be lost. I was worried that you were in trouble.
Mm.
I pulled you over because I wanted to help you.
Right.
And what did you do, lady? It's like you gave me so much trouble. And I got to tell you, Logan, in that moment, I'm telling you, that police officer was an incredible gift to me because in that
Mm.
moment, I saw my assumptions about him that were wrong. I saw the absence of emotional intelligence that I brought to that conversation. I saw how unskillful I was and how really not very nice I was. And
Yeah.
he woke me up at that time. He woke me up and it changed my life forever. And I ended up apologizing. I cried. I said, I'm so sorry. You're exactly right. So, stories, there's another story when, a guy broke into my Brooklyn apartment and threatened me with a knife.
Mm.
And so there was a whole piece around. I mean, the incredible thing was I happened to have been reading this book on meditation and compassion.
Mm.
And it was about, when you can have compassion for others, when you can have that empathy for others, that tends to soften the dynamics of the conflict. What
Mm.
might be a fierce conflict can be softened. And don't you know, this guy waltzed into my Brooklyn apartment. I was on the ground floor. It was a spring day, threatened me with a knife. And I was so steeped in that content,
Mm.
I was able to meet him in a compassionate way. And I swear that compassion probably saved me. That had I responded to him with aggression, I
Yeah.
think I could have been really hurt. But he ended up, because of the compassion I was able to bring, he ended up devolving into tears right
Oh.
in front of me. And then he said, I promise I'm going to come back here someday and I'm going to thank you. He said, I thank you. He thanked me
Hmm.
as he walked out the front door. So that's the power of empathy, the power of compassion, the power of recognizing the, the genius in others. So stories. So I've got a lot of stories
No, the
in there.
stories are great. Like I say, they make great points. It reminds me of your attacker story reminds me of the Paul Pelosi story, where he actually was able to kind of befriend his attacker. Only
Yes,
once the cops showed up did the attacker hit him. But they
yes,
had actually struck up
yes,
a rapport, which
yes,
was needed. And
yes,
that's what you say is the emotional intelligence, the empathy. It's
yes,
2:30 in the morning. The officer doesn't know who he's pulling over. You could be a
yes.
danger to him. He might have the intention of like, is this young girl lost in the middle of the night?
Exactly.
So yeah,
And I was all of like 24, right?
yeah,
So he was trying to do something nice for me. And my attitude, my
right,
assumption about a cop, you
right,
know, ruined it. It took it
right.
in an ugly direction. But thank goodness, and it was a miracle. I'm going to call it a miracle. I use that word. When he said, "You hurt my feelings," he held the mirror up to me at that time so that
Mhm.
I could. And I thank goodness I was able to say, "Oh my gosh, look who I'm becoming. That's not who I want to be." And
Right.
he, as I said, I credit that guy with changing my life.
Well, that's
Yeah.
great. It doesn't matter what happens in our lives. It matters what we learn and what kind of changes we make from that
Yes. Yes.
experiences. That's for
Yes.
sure. We're
Yes.
almost out of time, but I want to ask you about your book and who is it targeted for? Is it targeted for the CEO, the entrepreneur, the associate within the organization, all of the above? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think it's targeted for just about anybody who works in an organization
Mhm.
and who's interested in supporting your individual contributors and your teams and your leaders, supporting them, nurturing them so that they can step into the full creative potential that's aligned with what the mission of the organization is. So anybody who's interested in leveraging the potential of everybody in the organization. I think this book can be helpful. It's really easy to read. It's not
Yeah,
very long. I had a colleague
exactly.
read it in like 4.5 hours. And by the way, good news, I'm going to be doing the audio version later this month.
Wonderful.
Yeah, right now I just have the print version, the Kindle version, but I'm doing the audio version and I'm going to read it myself so
Great.
I can tell those stories.
That's terrific. That's
It's going to
terrific.
be
For
fun,
the
I
busy
think.
executive, listen to it in the car for a little bit each day. I think
Yeah.
that's a great idea. Are you working on any other writing right now?
Oh, I'm writing in my journal all the time,
Mhm.
collecting ideas. And I'm writing emails all the time in which I'm sharing ideas. And there is another book in the it's in the
In the
queue.
wings?
I'll come call it in the wings, in the queue. It's a little early to talk about that, but
Sure.
I've been to a number of book fairs. I was at the London Book Fair. I was at the UC San Diego Book Fair. I met so many wonderful people. We're sharing stories with each other. So I'm around, and I'm
Wonderful.
doing more radio interviews, more television interviews. Pieces like this. So
Excellent. Excellent.
I'm
Well, we're
happy.
glad you're sharing your insight with your work with executives. And like I said, whether you're an executive or a CEO or an entrepreneur or want to be one, I think a book like this is important. And I also like these business books because they get you focused.
Yes,
They might even reinforce what you intuitively knew
yes,
or thought you knew or already do know. But it's
yes,
good to have that echo of like, yeah, if I'm
yes,
compassionate, yes, if I'm empathetic, yes, if I'm
yes.
seeking others' input, I'm going to be a better executive.
Yes, yes. And the nice thing is at the end of each chapter, I offer questions for reflection on how to apply these technologies, these skills. And I've had a number of people tell me how much they loved the reflection questions, that it
Mm.
really helped them personalize the techniques and the skills and apply them in very, very specific ways. personal ways for them. So
Wonderful.
that's another element that I think is useful.
It's a great exercise for sure. Carol Ann Langford has written a wonderful book that'll help you revolutionize your business or your own leadership style. It is called The Speed of Passion. In it, she takes a look at corporate leadership and how innovative practices that enhance stakeholder engagement can drive innovation and make for a better organization from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Carol Ann, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
My pleasure, Logan Crawford. And I want to say, too, in addition to helping all the corporations, the organizations, the people, let's make it a better world.
Absolutely.
Right? Let's make it a better world. Let's make it a more beautiful, caring, kind, creative world.
I agree.
That's the biggest mission.
And also, we're spending 40, 50, 60 plus hours a week in these jobs, the best hours of our days. If it's a better, more understanding, more compassionate place, not only will you be getting better results, but you'll also be creating better life experiences for the people within your organization. And that's important too.
Yes, yes. The life of greater meaning and greater joy. That's my hope and aspiration for everyone. And that can come with rigor. I'm not saying this is not a rigorous practice.
We're not saying you're going to be the easy boss, but no, I think great reward comes when people are working rigorously. Agreed. I mean, I think that's where the speed of passion and what it's all about comes into play.
That's what it's meant to do.
Thanks so much for joining us here today, Carol Ann.
My pleasure, Logan. Thank you so much for this engaged conversation. It's been my delight and joy.
I enjoyed it as well. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.
Take care, everybody.
Visit us at www.greatwritersmedia.com. Email us at info@greatwritersmedia.com or call us at +1 877 556 0487.